The ocean roared like it was trying to drown out my thoughts. But his eyes, those piercing green eyes, cut through the noise like a blade. I stood frozen on the Santa Monica beach, the sand hot under my bare feet, as he leaned against the Lifeguard tower, watching me like he knew something I didn't. My heart slammed against my ribs, and I hadn't even said a word to him yet. My name is Elias Navarro, a 24-year-old barista from East LA, who came to the beach that summer day in 2025 to escape the weight of a life that felt too small. I wasn't looking for trouble, just a moment to breathe, to feel the salt air sting my lungs and remind me I was alive. But trouble found me anyway, in the form of a lifeguard named Caleb Reed, whose easy smile hid something dangerous, something that would unravel me in ways I couldn't predict. It was late afternoon, the kind of California day where the sun paints everything gold and the world feels like it's holding its breath. The beach was alive, kids shrieking as they dodged waves, couples sprawled on towels, and vendors hawking ice cream under striped umbrellas. I'd wandered away from my friends, who were busy flirting with a group of surfers, and found myself near Tower 12, where Caleb was stationed. He wasn't like the other lifeguards, all bronzed and cocky, shouting orders through megaphones. Caleb was quieter, his presence commanding without effort, like the ocean itself. His red shorts hugged his hips, and the whistle around his neck glinted in the sunlight. I didn't mean to stare, but my eyes betrayed me. "You lost, man." His voice was low, teasing, but there was an edge to it, like he was testing me. I blinked, caught off guard, and fumbled for words. "Nah, just taking a walk," I managed, my voice sounding thinner than I wanted. I shoved my hands into the pockets of my shorts, trying to play it cool, but my pulse was racing. Up close, Caleb was even more striking tall, with broad shoulders and curls that fell just above his eyes. There was a scar on his left cheek, faint but jagged, like a story he wasn't telling. He tilted his head, studying me. "You don't look like you belong out here, Elias." My name on his lips hit me like a shockwave. I hadn't told him my name. Before I could ask how he knew, he smirked and pointed to the lanyard around my neck, where my ID from the coffee shop dangled. "Barista, huh? Bet you make a mean latte." I laughed, nervous, and the sound felt foreign. "Yeah, something like that." I wanted to keep talking, to ask him how he ended up here, perched on a tower like some kind of guardian angel with a devil's grin. But something in his gaze made my throat tight, like he could see the parts of me I kept locked away, the parts that didn't fit in East LA, where being openly gay still felt like walking through a minefield. "Ever been out on the water?" he asked, stepping closer. The space between us shrank, and the air felt charged, like the moment before a storm. I shook my head, my mouth dry. "Come by tomorrow," he said, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "I'll show you something worth seeing." I should have said no. I should have turned around and walked back to my friends, back to the safety of the familiar. But I didn't. Instead, I nodded, and that single gesture felt like signing a contract I didn't understand. The next day, I was back at Tower 12, my stomach twisting with nerves and something else, something reckless. Caleb was there. Same red shorts, same whistle. But today he was off duty, wearing a faded black tank top that showed off the lean muscles of his arms. He greeted me with a nod, like we were old friends, and handed me a paddleboard. "You ever try this?" he asked, already walking toward the water. "Nope," I admitted, eyeing the board like it was a wild animal. "I'm more of a stay-on-land guy." He laughed, a sound that was warm and sharp all at once. "Not today. You're not." He showed me how to balance, his hands brushing mine as he adjusted my grip on the paddle. Each touch sent a jolt through me, and I wondered if he felt it too. out on the water, with the shore shrinking behind us. It was just me and him, the world reduced to the rhythm of our paddles slicing through the waves. "You're not bad at this," he said after a while, his board gliding effortlessly beside mine. The sun was high, and sweat beaded on his forehead, catching the light. "What's your deal, Elias? Why do you look like you're carrying the weight of the world?" The question caught me off guard, and I almost lost my balance. No one ever asked me that, not my mom, who worked double shifts to keep us afloat. Not my friends, who didn't know half the thoughts I buried. "Just life," I said, shrugging. "Family stuff. Trying to figure out who I am, I guess." Caleb's eyes softened, but there was something else there. Something hungry. "Yeah, I get that," he said. "Sometimes you gotta break a few rules to find out." We paddled in silence for a while, the only sound the lap of water against our boards. Then he stopped, letting his board drift, and turned to face me. "You ever feel like you're hiding from yourself?" he asked, his voice so quiet it barely carried over the waves. My breath hitched. I wanted to lie, to say no, but his gaze pinned me in place. "All the time," I admitted, the words slipping out before I could stop them. And just like that, the walls I'd built around myself started to crack. That confession hung between us like a live wire, sparking in the salt-soaked air. Caleb didn't push, didn't pry, but his silence was louder than any question. Out here, with the ocean stretching endless and blue, I felt exposed, like he'd peeled back my skin to see the mess underneath. We paddled back to shore, the sun dipping lower, casting long shadows across the sand. My arms ached, but it was the weight of his words that stayed with me. Hiding from yourself. I'd spent years doing just that, dodging glances in locker rooms, laughing off questions about why I didn't date, pretending I didn't notice the way my heart raced around certain guys. But Caleb saw through it, and that scared me as much as it thrilled me. Back at Tower 12, he tossed me a towel and sat on the steps, his elbows resting on his knees. "You're not like the usual beach crowd," he said, his tone casual but his eyes sharp. "Most people come here to show off or forget something. You're looking for something." I wiped the sweat from my face, avoiding his gaze. "Maybe I just wanted to try paddleboarding," I said, forcing a grin. He didn't buy it. "Sure. And I'm just a lifeguard who likes the view." He leaned back, his tank top riding up slightly, revealing a sliver of tanned skin. My eyes flicked there before I could stop them, and he noticed. Of course he did. His smile was slow, almost predatory, but there was a warmth in it that made my chest tighten. "Tell you what," he said, standing and brushing sand off his hands. "Meet me here tonight, after my shift. There's a bonfire down by the pier. No pressure, just good company." I hesitated. Bonfires meant crowds, and crowds meant questions I wasn't ready to answer. But the way he looked at me, like I was more than the sum of my fears, made it impossible to say no. "Okay," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "What time?" 10, he replied, then added, "Don't overthink it, Elias. Just show up." That night, I stood in front of my cracked bedroom mirror, tugging at the hem of a clean black t-shirt. My mom was in the kitchen, humming to the radio, oblivious to the storm in my head. I hadn't told her about Caleb, about the way my skin buzzed when he said my name. She wouldn't understand, not because she didn't love me, but because she came from a world where some truths were better left buried. The bonfire was already roaring when I arrived, flames licking the sky as a mix of locals and tourists crowded around. Music pulsed from a portable speaker, and the air smelled of smoke and salt water. I spotted Caleb near the fire, laughing with a group of guys in board shorts, his silhouette sharp against the orange glow. He saw me and waved me over, his grin lighting something inside me I didn't want to name. "Glad you made it," he said, handing me a soda from a cooler. His fingers brushed mine, and I swear the world tilted. "These are my buddies Jake, Marcus, and Ty." The guys nodded, sizing me up, but Caleb's presence was a shield, keeping their curiosity at bay. We sat on driftwood logs, the fire casting shadows across Caleb's face. He told stories about rogue waves and late-night rescues, his voice weaving a spell that made the crowd lean in. But every so often, his eyes found mine, holding them a second too long. Each glance was a question, a challenge, and I didn't know how to answer. As the night wore on, the crowd thinned, leaving just a few stragglers. Caleb leaned closer, his shoulder brushing mine. "Walk with me," he said, his voice low enough that only I could hear. We wandered down the beach, away from the fire, the sound of waves swallowing the music behind us. "You ever think about leaving?" he asked, kicking at the sand. "Just packing up and starting over somewhere new." "All the time," I said, surprised by my own honesty. "But it's not that simple. My mom, my job, it's like I'm stuck in quicksand." He stopped walking, turning to face me. The moonlight caught the scar on his cheek, making it stand out like a map to somewhere dangerous. "You're not stuck, Elias. You're just scared. And that's okay. But you don't have to stay that way." His words hit me like a punch, because they were true. I was scared off what I felt, of what it meant, of what people would say if they knew. But standing there, with the ocean whispering secrets and Caleb's eyes locked on mine, I felt something shift. I wasn't ready to name it, but it was there, alive and pulsing between us. Before I could respond, he stepped closer, so close I could feel the heat radiating from him. "You don't have to hide with me," he said, his voice barely audible. And then, without warning, he reached out, his hand grazing my arm, sending a shock through my entire body. I froze, my breath catching, as he leaned in, his lips so close I could feel his breath against my skin. But he didn't kiss me. Instead, he pulled back, his eyes searching mine, like he was waiting for permission I didn't know how to give. "Think about it," he said, then turned and walked back toward the fire, leaving me standing there, gasping for air. My world turned upside down. The sand was cold under my feet as I stood there, heart pounding, the ghost of Caleb's touch burning my arm. He was already halfway back to the bonfire, his silhouette swallowed by the flickering light, but I couldn't move. My body screamed to follow him, to chase whatever this was, but my mind was a tangle of fear and want, chaining me to the spot. I walked home that night under a sky heavy with stars, each step replaying that moment, his breath, his eyes, the way he'd stopped just short of crossing a line. By the time I collapsed onto my bed, the clock glowing 1:17 a.m. I was a mess of questions with no answers. Who was Caleb Reed? And why did he make me feel like I was drowning and flying all at once? The next morning, I woke with a headache and a resolve to stay away from Tower 12. I told myself it was safer to stick to my routine, pouring coffee, dodging my mom's questions about my plans, pretending I wasn't unraveling. But by noon, I was back on the beach, drawn like a moth to a flame. Caleb was there, scanning the water from his perch, his red rescue tube slung across his chest. He didn't see me at first, and I watched him, the way he moved with purpose, the way the sun carved shadows into his jawline. When he finally spotted me, he climbed down, his grin softer than before. "Thought you might ghost me," he said, tossing me a water bottle. "Glad you didn't." I caught it, my fingers clumsy. "Yeah, well, I'm here. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. I wanted to ask him about last night, about what he meant, but the words stuck in my throat. He didn't push. Instead, he gestured to the tower. Want to see the view from up there? Before I could answer, he was climbing the ladder, motioning for me to follow. The tower was small, just a platform with a chair and a radio, but it felt like a fortress above the chaos of the beach. From up there, the world was simpler waves, sand, sky, and Caleb, leaning against the railing, watching me like I was a puzzle he wanted to solve. You ever feel like you're living someone else's life? He asked, his voice cutting through the sound of the surf. Like you're playing a role, but it's not you. I gripped the railing, the metal warm under my hands. Every day, I said, my voice raw. Back home, it's like I'm always watching what I say, what I do. Like I'm waiting for permission to exist. He nodded, like he'd been there too. I grew up in a small town in Arizona, he said, his eyes on the horizon. Church every Sunday, football games, the whole deal. But I was different. Always knew it. Took me years to stop hating myself for it. His words hit me hard, because they were mine too. I'd never said them out loud, but they lived in me, in the way I avoided mirrors, in the way I flinched when my mom asked if I'd met someone special. I wanted to tell him, to spill everything, but fear clamped down, a familiar cage. Caleb turned to me, his expression unreadable. You don't have to tell me anything, Elias. But I see you. And I'm not going anywhere. The air between us crackled, and I felt that pull again, stronger this time. I wanted to close the distance, to feel his hand on my arm again, to let go of the weight I'd carried for so long. But before I could move, a shout from below snapped us out of it. A kid had wandered too far into the surf, and Caleb was down the ladder in seconds. All business. I watched him sprint into the water, his movements swift and sure, pulling the kid to safety. The crowd cheered, but I barely heard them. All I could think about was the way he'd said I see you, like he'd found a piece of me I didn't know I'd lost. That evening, I stayed late at the beach, helping Caleb stack chairs as the sun sank. We didn't talk about the tower, but the silence was heavy with everything unsaid. When we finished, he invited me to grab tacos at a food truck nearby. We sat on a curb, the neon lights of the truck glowing against the dusk, and for the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. Tell me something real, he said between bites, his eyes locked on mine. Something no one else knows. I hesitated, the taco turning to ash in my mouth. Then, like a dam breaking, I said, I'm scared I'll never be enough. Not for my mom, not for myself, not for anyone. My voice cracked, and I looked away, embarrassed. Caleb didn't laugh or brush it off. He just reached out, his hand resting on my knee, steady and warm. You're enough, Elias. Right now, just as you are. I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to. But the fear was still there, whispering that this whatever it was couldn't last. And when he leaned in, his lips brushing mine in a kiss that was soft and electric and terrifying, I didn't pull away. I kissed him back, my hands trembling, my heart racing, and for one perfect moment, the world was just us. That kiss was a spark in a dry forest, and I was burning. Caleb's lips were warm, tasting of salt and lime, and for those few seconds, I forgot how to be afraid. But when we pulled apart, the world rushed back neon lights, the hum of the food truck, the distant crash of waves, and with it came the panic. I stood up too fast, nearly knocking over my soda. I gotta go, I stammered, my voice barely audible. Caleb's eyes widened, but he didn't stop me. He just watched, his expression a mix of hurt and understanding. As I stumbled away into the night. Back home, I lay awake, the memory of his kiss looping in my head like a song I couldn't shake. I wanted to run back to him, to tell him I wasn't ready, but I wanted to be. Instead, I buried my face in my pillow, trying to silence the voice that said I'd just ruined something fragile and real. For the next few days, I avoided the beach. I threw myself into work, steaming milk and wiping counters until my hands ached. But Caleb was everywhere, in the steam rising from a latte, in the green of a customer's shirt, in the quiet moments when my thoughts betrayed me. My mom noticed something was off, her eyes narrowing as she asked, "You okay, Mijo? You look like you lost something." I mumbled an excuse and fled to my room, where the walls felt like they were closing in. By the 5th day, I couldn't stand it anymore. I went back to Tower 12, half hoping Caleb wouldn't be there, half praying he would. He was, of course, leaning against the tower like he'd been waiting for me. His smile was cautious, but his eyes were the same, green and deep, pulling me in. "Didn't think I'd see you again," he said, tossing a pebble into the sand. "You okay?" I wanted to lie, to say I was fine, but the truth clawed its way out. I freaked out, I admitted, my voice low. That night, it was too much. Too fast. He nodded, like he'd expected it. "I pushed you. I'm sorry." He stepped closer, not touching me, but close enough that I could feel the warmth of him. "I don't want to scare you off, Elias, but I'm not going to pretend I don't feel something." My throat tightened. "What if I can't do this?" I asked, the words barely a whisper. "What if I'm not ready?" "Then we take it slow," he said, his voice steady. "No pressure. Just you and me, figuring it out." I wanted to believe it could be that simple, but nothing in my life had ever been. Still, I nodded, and when he suggested we grab coffee not at my shop, but at a quiet place down the boardwalk, I said yes. The coffee shop was tucked between a surf store and a tattoo parlor, its windows fogged with steam. We sat in a corner booth, the hum of conversation around us fading as we talked. Caleb told me about his life, how he'd left Arizona after a fight with his dad, who couldn't accept that his son was gay, how he'd found a home in the chaos of LA, where the ocean gave him a place to belong. His honesty was a mirror, reflecting my own fears, my own secrets. "I've never told anyone this," I said, staring into my coffee. "But I've known I was different since I was a kid. I just never had the guts to say it out loud. Not to my mom, not to anyone." Caleb reached across the table, his hand resting near mine, but not touching. "You're saying it now?" he said softly. "That's a start." The days that followed were a blur of stolen moments, early mornings at the beach, late nights sharing fries at the boardwalk, quiet talks under the stars. Caleb was patient, never pushing me further than I could go, but each touch, each glance, chipped away at the walls I'd built. I was falling for him, and it terrified me, because I knew what came next, the moment I'd have to choose between hiding and living. One evening, as we sat on the steps of Tower 12, the beach empty except for us, he turned to me, his expression serious. "There's a party this weekend," he said. "At my place. Just a few friends. I want you to come." A party meant people, and people meant questions. But the way he looked at me, like I was someone worth showing off, made me want to be brave. "Okay," I said, my voice trembling. "I'll be there." The night of the party, I stood outside Caleb's apartment in Venice, a small, weathered building with fairy lights strung across the balcony. Music spilled out, and laughter echoed through the open windows. I clutched a 6-pack of beer, my palms sweaty, and wondered if I was making a mistake. But then Caleb opened the door, his smile like a lifeline, and pulled me inside. The room was packed: surfers, artists, a few other lifeguards, all laughing and clinking glasses. Caleb introduced me as his friend, but his hand lingered on my back, a silent promise. For the first time, I didn't feel like I had to hide. I laughed. I danced. I let myself be seen. And when Caleb pulled me into a corner and kissed me again, this time in front of everyone, I didn't pull away. I kissed him back, my heart soaring, even as a small voice warned me that freedom always comes with a cost. The party's pulse thrummed through me, Caleb's kiss still tingling on my lips as the crowd cheered and whistled. For a moment, I was weightless, untethered from the fear that had defined me for so long. But as the night wore on, the high faded, and doubt crept in like fog rolling off the ocean. Caleb's friends were welcoming, their easy laughter and clinking beers making me feel like I belonged. But I caught the glances, curious, probing, some warm, some not. A guy named Marcus, one of Caleb's lifeguard buddies, pulled me aside, his smile tight. "So, you and Caleb, huh? Didn't see that coming." His tone was light, but his eyes were sharp, like he was waiting for me to flinch. I shrugged, my throat dry. "Yeah, we're just hanging out." The lie tasted bitter, but I wasn't ready to name what we were. Not to a stranger. Not yet. Marcus nodded, but his gaze lingered, and I felt exposed, like I'd been caught stealing something I didn't deserve. I found Caleb in the kitchen, pouring drinks, and he sensed my unease without me saying a word. "You good?" he asked, his hand brushing mine. I nodded, but my stomach twisted. "Just not used to this," I said, gesturing vaguely at the room. "People knowing." He squeezed my hand, quick and reassuring. "You don't have to explain yourself to anyone. Not here." But even his warmth couldn't shake the feeling that I was walking a tightrope, and one wrong step could send me crashing. The next morning, I woke to a text from my mom: "Dinner tonight. Bring a friend if you want." My heart sank. I'd been dodging her questions for weeks, and now she was reaching, trying to bridge the gap I'd put between us. I thought about Caleb, about how easy it would be to bring him, to let her see who I was. But the thought of her face, her confusion, her disappointment made my chest ache. I met Caleb at the beach instead, the morning sun glinting off the waves. He was off duty, sprawled on a towel, his sunglasses hiding his eyes. "You look like you're carrying the world again," he said, patting the sand beside him. I sat, pulling my knees to my chest. "My mom wants me to come to dinner. She said to bring a friend." He pushed his sunglasses up, his gaze steady. "You thinking about it?" I swallowed hard. "I want to. But she doesn't know." "About me? About us?" He didn't push, just nodded, like he understood the weight of secrets. "When I came out to my dad," he said, "he didn't speak to me for a year. Still doesn't. Not really. But keeping it in was killing me. You gotta decide what's worth more, hiding or being free." His words echoed in my head all day, battling the fear that had rooted itself deep. By evening, I was standing outside my mom's apartment in East LA, Caleb beside me, his presence both a comfort and a challenge. I hadn't planned to bring him, but he'd shown up at my place, his grin daring me to take the leap. "You don't have to say anything," he'd said. "Just let me be there." My mom opened the door, her smile warm but curious as she took in Caleb. "Elias, you brought a friend," she said, ushering us inside. The apartment smelled of her cooking tamales, rice, the comfort of home. She asked Caleb about his job, his life, and he answered with easy charm, deflecting the spotlight from me. but I felt her eyes on us, catching the way Caleb's hand brushed mine, the way I smiled when he spoke. Dinner was a blur of small talk and nervous glances. Afterward, as we washed dishes, my mom's voice was soft but pointed. "He's nice. Mijo. Someone special." The question was a knife, sharp and precise, and I froze, soap dripping from my hands. "He's a friend," I said, the words heavy with everything I didn't say. She nodded, but her eyes held a question she didn't ask, and I knew I'd disappointed her not because of Caleb, but because I couldn't give her the truth. Later, as we walked back to Caleb's car, he took my hand, his grip firm. "You did good," he said. "It's a start." But it didn't feel like enough. The weight of my silence pressed down, and I wondered how long I could keep this uplifting half a life, loving in shadows. Caleb sensed it, pulling me into a hug under a flickering streetlight. "You'll get there," he whispered. "I'll wait." The next week was a whirlwind. Caleb invited me to a pride event on the boardwalk, a riot of color and music that felt like stepping into another world. I hesitated, but he convinced me, his hand in mine as we wove through the crowd. For the first time, I felt like I could breathe without looking over my shoulder. We danced, we laughed, and when he kissed me in the middle of the crowd, I didn't care who saw. But the high didn't last. Back at work, a regular customer, an older guy from the neighborhood, saw a pride pin Caleb had given me, tucked on my apron. His sneer was subtle but cutting. "Didn't peg you for one of them," he muttered, tossing his change on the counter. The word stung, a reminder of the world I'd have to face if I chose this path. That night, I lay awake, torn between the freedom Caleb offered and the safety of staying hidden. And when I closed my eyes, I saw him, his smile, his scar, the way he made me feel like I could be enough. But I wasn't sure if I was brave enough to claim it. The pride pin sat heavy in my pocket, a small rebellion I wasn't sure I could wear. Caleb's world was bright and bold, a place where he could be himself without apology. But mine was still a maze of shadows, each step forward laced with the fear of falling. I wanted to be the person he saw in me, but the weight of expectation, me mom's, my community's, my own, kept pulling me back. The next day, I found Caleb at Tower 12, his shift just ending. The beach was quieter now, the summer crowds thinning as September settled in. He was folding chairs, his movement steady but his eyes distant, like he was carrying his own burdens. When he saw me, his face lit up, but there was a question in his gaze, like he could sense the storm inside me. "You've been quiet," he said, tossing a chair onto the stack. "Everything okay?" I wanted to tell him about the customer, about the pin, about the way my mom's unspoken questions haunted me. But the words tangled in my throat, and I just shrugged. Just thinking. He didn't push, but he gestured to the water. "Come on. Let's swim." Before I could protest, he was stripping off his shirt, his skin golden in the fading light. I followed, hesitant, the cold waves biting my ankles as we waded in. The ocean was a shock, pulling me out of my head and into my body. Caleb swam ahead, diving under a wave, then surfaced, shaking water from his hair. "Race you to the buoy," he called, his grin a challenge. I laughed, the sound surprising me, and dove after him. The water was a cocoon, muffling the world, and for a moment, it was just us, racing through the current, our breaths syncing with the rhythm of the sea. When we reached the buoy, gasping and laughing, he grabbed my hand, pulling me close. The water lapped around us, and his eyes were serious, searching. "You don't have to have it all figured out," he said, his voice low over the waves. "But you can't keep running from yourself, Elias. It'll eat you alive." I wanted to argue, to tell him it wasn't that simple. But his hand in mine was an anchor, grounding me in a way I hadn't felt before. I'm trying, I said, my voice breaking. I just don't know how to do this. He smiled, soft and sad. You're doing it right now? We swam back to shore, the silence between us heavy but not uncomfortable. As we dried off, he told me about his first Pride event, how he'd been terrified but found a family in the crowd, people who saw him for who he was. It's not about being fearless, he said. It's about showing up, even when you're scared. His words stayed with me as I went home, the pride pin burning a hole in my pocket. That night, I stood in front of my mirror, holding it up, imagining what it would feel like to wear it openly. But when I thought of my mom, of the church she loved, of the neighbors who'd whisper, I tucked it away again, my courage faltering. The next day, I went to work, the pin hidden but its weight ever present. My coworker, Lena, noticed my distraction, her eyes narrowing. You okay, Elias? You've been off lately. I brushed it off, but when a customer left a crumpled flyer for a local Pride event on the counter, Lena picked it up, her smile curious. You going to this? My heart raced, but I shook my head. Too quick. Nah, not my thing. She didn't push, but her look lingered, and I wondered how much she'd guessed. That evening, I met Caleb at the boardwalk, where a street performer juggled fire to a cheering crowd. We watched in silence, the flames reflecting in his eyes. I want to tell her, I said suddenly, the words spilling out. My mom. But I'm scared she'll hate me. Caleb turned to me, his expression soft. She might not understand at first, but if she loves you and I can tell she does, she'll come around. You just have to give her a chance. I nodded, but the fear was a knot in my chest. We walked along the boardwalk, sharing a cone of cotton candy, the sweetness a contrast to the bitterness of my thoughts. When he kissed me under the Ferris wheel, the lights spinning above us, I let myself sink into it, letting the moment be enough. The next morning, I woke with a plan. I'd tell my mom, not everything, but enough a step toward the truth. I found her in the kitchen, stirring coffee, her face tired but warm. Mijo, you're up early, she said, smiling. What's on your mind? I took a breath, my hands shaking. Mom, there's someone I care about. His name's Caleb. The words felt like glass, sharp and fragile, but they were out, and I couldn't take them back. Her smile faltered, then steadied. Caleb. Huh. The lifeguard. She set her mug down, her eyes searching mine. You're happy with him? I nodded, tears pricking my eyes. Yeah. Really happy. She didn't say anything for a long moment, then reached for my hand. Then I want to meet him. Properly. It wasn't acceptance. Not yet. But it was a door opening, and I clung to it like a lifeline. That night, I told Caleb, and his smile was brighter than the sun. You did it, he said, pulling me into a hug. I'm proud of you. And as I stood there, wrapped in his arms, I realized I was starting to believe I could be proud of myself too. The air felt lighter after telling my mom, like I'd shed a layer of armor I didn't know I was wearing. Her words cautious, but open echoed in my head as I walked to the beach the next day. The pride pin finally clipped to my shirt, a small act of defiance against the fear that still lingered. Caleb was waiting at Tower 12, his grin wide as he spotted the pin, his eyes saying everything he didn't need to. You're full of surprises, Navarro, he said, pulling me into a quick hug. The beach was quiet, the morning mist still clinging to the sand. And for once, I didn't feel like I was hiding. But the world has a way of testing you when you start to feel safe. That afternoon, As I worked my shift at the coffee shop, the door chimed, and Marcus walked in, Caleb's lifeguard friend from the party. He wasn't smiling this time. He ordered a black coffee. His voice clipped, and when I handed it to him, he leaned in, his eyes hard. "You need to watch yourself, Elias. Caleb's got a reputation. You're not the first guy he's pulled into his orbit." The words hit like a rogue wave, knocking the air from my lungs. I forced a nod, muttering, "Thanks for the heads up," but my hands shook as I wiped the counter. Was Marcus jealous, or was he telling the truth? Caleb had never mentioned other guys, but doubt crept in, poisoning the trust I'd started to build. I didn't tell Caleb about Marcus. Instead, I watched him closer, searching for cracks in the person I thought I knew. That evening, we met at the pier, the sunset painting the sky in shades of fire. He sensed my distance, his brow furrowing. "What's going on, Elias? You're off." I wanted to confront him, to ask about the reputation, but fear stopped me. Instead, I said, "Just tired. Long day." He didn't push, but his hand found mine, and I hated how much I still wanted him, even with Marcus's warning ringing in my ears. The next day, I saw Ida thought I did. Caleb was at the tower, talking to a guy I didn't recognize. Their laughter too easy, their body language too close. My stomach twisted, and I turned away, walking home without a word. That night, I ignored his texts, my mind spiraling with images of betrayal, of being just another name on a list. But Caleb wasn't one to let things slide. The next morning, he showed up at my apartment, his face a mix of worry and frustration. "You gonna tell me what's wrong, or do I have to guess?" he asked, leaning against the doorframe. I couldn't hold it in anymore. "Marcus said you've done this before," I blurted. "That I'm not the first." "Who was that guy at the tower yesterday?" Caleb's eyes widened, then softened with understanding. "Marcus," he muttered, shaking his head. "He's got his own issues." "That guy? He's my cousin, in town for the week." "Elias, I'm not playing games with you. I haven't been with anyone since I met you." His words were a lifeline, but I was still drowning in doubt. "Then why didn't you tell me about your past?" I asked, my voice raw. "Why let me hear it from someone else?" He stepped closer, his hands gentle on my shoulders. "Because my past doesn't matter. You do. I didn't tell you because I didn't want you to think you're just another guy. You're not." I wanted to believe him, but trust was a fragile thing, and mine was cracked. He pulled me into a hug, his heartbeat steady against mine, and whispered, "Let me prove it." Over the next week, he did. He introduced me to his cousin, who laughed off the misunderstanding, and invited me to meet his friends again, this time making it clear I was more than a friend. He showed me his world, his favorite dive bar, the spot where he watched the sunrise, the journal where he wrote about the day we met. Each moment was a brick, rebuilding what doubt had torn down. The turning point came at a community event on the beach, a fundraiser for local youth. Caleb was speaking, sharing his story of coming out, of finding his place. I stood in the crowd. My mom beside Meshed insisted on coming, her way of trying to understand. When Caleb mentioned me, calling me someone who's teaching me what courage looks like, I felt tears sting my eyes. My mom squeezed my hand, her silence louder than words. Afterward, she pulled me aside. "I don't understand everything, Mijo," she said, her voice soft. "But I see how he looks at you. And I see you. Happy. That's enough for me." That night, under the stars, Caleb and I sat on the steps of Tower 12, the place where it all began. He took my hand, his thumb tracing circles on my skin. "You're not hiding anymore," he said, his voice warm with pride. I smiled, the pride pin glinting on my shirt. Not from you, I said. And when he kissed me, slow and deep, I didn't pull away. I leaned in, choosing him, choosing myself, choosing a life where I could finally breathe. I never reported what Caleb did to me that first day, making me gasp, making me feel alive because it wasn't a crime. It was a gift, one I'd carry forever, as I stepped into a world where I could finally be whole.